Hello, my name is Neil Ainger. I'm here with Finextra at the Digital Insurance Agenda show in Barcelona. We're joined by Jamie Macgregor, SVP Insurance at Celent. Jamie, thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So what technologies and end uses are exciting you in insurance at the moment?
It's probably going back to what it's always been, but it's taking a new move or new stage in its development, and that's around data analytics. Not just for the data that you hold with an insurance company, but more interestingly, what you can get from outside. So the Internet of Things is a very hot topic, and the implications of that, both on the underwriting result, but also on the way that you actually service customers. So having that data, what can you do to effectively nudge the insured to change their behaviours and change the risk profile? That's definitely the most exciting area in the industry, I think.
So big data analytics, AI, all of these areas feeding into risk is the key thing for you.
It is, but it's not so much big data. It can be. And I heard Nadeem Sheikh use the term last week, in fact. Relevant data is better. So it doesn't always have to be big.
Is one part of the industry leading another part? So is general insurance ahead of brokers or reinsurers? What's your opinion?
So insurance is, on the spectrum of financial services, has always really been towards the bottom in a lot of people's perceptions and minds. So it's always been looking out to say, why aren't we as good as them? Why aren't we behaving in this sort of way? Sometimes I think that's a little unfair, because if you look at innovation in the industry and you look at it within the, say, for example, the pricing elements of it and the optimization, in some areas, insurance is way ahead of the rest of financial services. Coming into the insurance industry itself, which one's ahead? It is really general insurance is probably spending more around technology and sort of data and analytics area. The life industry is very interested and spending more and more. Typically it's around things like automation and robotics in the life industry and around customer engagement, whereas if you look at the P&C, is a little bit of that, but a lot of things like the IoT is very big in that area. When you come to the broking area, unless you're a mega broker with a huge IT investment budget, a lot of brokers are actually sort of mid-sized businesses and small-sized businesses. For them, it's a question of how to navigate this space when you don't have a lot of IT investment. So for there, quite often in that sort of space, it's lagging behind maybe what the customer's demanding.
And are the same technologies being used in insurance that are being used in banking or other FIs? So can you take one and swap it into another area, or have you got to do some hand chiseling?
Increasingly, yes. I would say that we're coming out of a period where insurance technology has been quite tribal. It's sort of existed within its own domain. Increasingly, as you open your business up to the internet and to other mobile devices and just around the IoT, it's moving you into more horizontal technology plays, and those are common between both banking and insurance. What I think has been really interesting over the last 3 or 4 years when we interview CIOs is the switch between sort of spending with the tried and tested, secure, tribal vendors and tribal SIs and starting to experiment with smaller vendors and smaller SIs. So actually experimenting in sort of breaking down the old traditional large contracts with one player into lots of small, very short-term contracts with a few just sort of niche players trying things out.
And have insurers adopted the FinTech startup model? Are they investing in it, and for what ends?
Yes, they are. Yeah. So they've even rebadged it as InsurTech with various forms of spelling. As the spelling hasn't yet settled on that one. So over the last 18 months or so, we've seen sort of a growth of things like, for example, labs being set up in some of the larger insurers. We've seen sort of accelerator program starts, so Startup Bootcamp in London, the Global Insurance Accelerator in the US, and other accelerators sort of growing up and coming into sort of being. And many insurers have flocked to those to actually say, well, actually, how can I participate in this? How can I get involved? The question really is, are they looking at for an investment as far as technology bringing in? I think some of them are. Others are also looking at it as a change agent. So how can I actually make the organization think differently? How can I be more innovative? And plugging into those communities often brings some fresh ideas, some fresh ways of thinking. If you think about the traditional decision-making process within a large corporate, it doesn't necessarily have to be an insurers. It tends to be slow, compliance-related, procurement-driven. If you take a startup community, it's agile, it's fast, it's very much sort of action-oriented, and it's those sort of behaviours and capabilities that is equally as exciting to an insurer as the investments themselves.
How easy or otherwise is it to actually transpose a digital change agenda from a startup onto a typically complex, siloed insurance company?
That's the golden question. That's the money question. So I think if you speak to many insurers who are doing this at the moment, I think that's still a big challenge for them, because you're taking something from that environment which is fast moving and changing, and the question is, at what point is it mature enough, or at least stable enough, to bring it into the main organization? So I think that's still a struggle and still a challenge. There are several schools of thought of that. So the Greenfield site, set up a new co over here and have old co running here. You see a lot of that in the life industry, for example. In the general insurance industry, it's still a question of, sort of, can we pull it in? And there's different types of investment in FinTech and InsurTech which are interesting, I think. So some of it is around potential replacements to the way that you do business today. That's disruptive. Others are enabling. So the enabling type of technologies are sort of relatively easy to pull back in, because it's just like a piece of software, or could be seen as a piece of software or a process extension. The more disruptive ones, that's where the challenge is.
And Jamie, you're a keynote speaker at the show today. What will you be speaking on, and what are you hoping to see at the show?
So the title is Digital, Why Is It Taken So Long? And really it's looking at how digital is being approached within the industry. So starting with both the customer engagement point of view and the customer readiness to accept digital. So yes, customers want to be a more digital engagement based on everything else they do across other industries. But when it comes around to financial services products, especially insurance products, it's still an unknown area. So market education and financial confidence is potentially impacting adoption on some of those areas. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and techniques and mechanisms to try and address that. And then moving away from that into, so where is the future as far as digital concerned? So if you take the IoT and data and the potential even to create small algorithm-based insurers, which could employ no more than, say, 15 to 25 people, could that be a model for the future for certain types of lines of business? So the question is, at what point does brand play an important part and is important for securing new business, versus can you actually do it in other ways, and microinsurance, embedding your product in other brands effectively? So that's what I'll be talking about.
Jamie, for the future, will we be looking for things like robo-advisors in this space? What's the one thing you would point to as really exciting?
So robo-advisors are there today. So they've come in more from the investment side. Looking at it from a protection perspective, so there are some startups in this space. If you take, for example, the demonstration with Trove today with the bot, and the chat bot, effectively to walk you through those processes, I think that's generally going to be the model for a lot of consumer insurances going forward. The days of big old forms, having to actually understand a lot of the insurance jargon that sits behind it in order to fill out that form, are sort of numbered when it comes to consumer side of things. So I think it's interesting, it's exciting. Is it disruptive? It could be, depending on how the model comes through. I think the bigger change potentially still is in how you use the data and how you use it for marginal advantage against your competitors.
Jamie, thank you for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for watching.